The University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee plays a vital role in shaping the future of Milwaukee and Wisconsin. UWM's diversity, academic excellence, and major public research contribute to the region's economic development and quality of life. Meet the people behind the creativity and discoveries at UWM Today. Here's the host of UWM Today, Tom Luljak, Vice Chancellor for University Relations and Communications.
February is the time when many schools, especially at the elementary or the secondary level, observe Black History Month. But at UWM, there is an ongoing, year-round commitment to learning about the politics, the culture, and the economies of people who are of primary African origin. The courses are found in the Department of Africology in the College of Letters and Science. On this edition of UWM Today, we're joined by two faculty members in the department, Joyce Kirk, Associate Professor and currently the Chair of the department, and Winston Van Horne, who's Professor of Africology and also one of the founders of the program. Welcome to both of you, Winston and Joyce. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Joyce, perhaps we could start with you as Chair of the department. You oversee a unit that provides what I think is an incredibly valuable contribution to academic learning at UWM because of the focus that you deliver to both students and to the community. Tell us about the program.
Thank you for that great question. The Department of Africology has been in existence. It will be 40 years this year, and we're actually going to have a banquet in May at the University at Wisconsin Union. And we now have 11 faculty members. I think we actually have added 3 in the last 3 years. And we're very happy that we're able to do that. We are an undergraduate program at this time. We offer a major and minor in Africology, in political economy or cultures and society. We have a good number of majors and minors in the program, and over the years we've been able to educate many students from various backgrounds, not only African American students, but also students who are white background, Latino background, in majors and minors. And once they take a course in Africology, many of them are so excited because they learn so much new information that they weren't able to get often in elementary and high school. And then they end up really enjoying those courses. One of our courses is called Black Reality, and that's a Africology 100. We usually have 8 to 9 sessions, and each one holds about 65 students, and they're all full.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, a lot of people, I think, might be surprised listening to this program that you have such a broad following. You attract students really from every demographic unit. Winston, why do you think that is? What is it that brings people into your department?
Well, in the subject matter, over the years, individuals ask me, what can I do with a major in what was then called Black Studies or Afro-American Studies? Of course, today its proper name, Africology. And my pat response was anything you can do with one in political science, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, economics, and etc. But that was almost 40 years ago. Today I'm not so disposed to answer the question because it seems to me that it answers itself. But if I should just add anecdotally, at the end of the 1970s, there was a student, and he was majoring in chemistry and had some difficulties, but for whatever reason, he found me valuable, and I found him engaging. And anyway, to cut a long story short, he switched his major from chemistry to then Afro-American Studies. Graduated with a 3.9 grade point average in his major. But what's important, he always wanted to be a physician. And he left UWM, went back to Detroit, his home city. Got into a pre-med program at Wayne State. Succeeded, got into med school, graduated, and the last I heard of him is that he is an anesthesiologist, one of the premier areas of medicine, and one of the most highly remunerated, I might add. So that today, in regard to material resources, he could probably buy and sell me many times over. I simply mention that by way of saying persons who have majored in Africology have gone on to med school, to law school. In my own classes, there are at least 3 who have gone on to med school, to law school, to professional schools. So as I said, I mean, just as it's true in political science or philosophy or economics, the world is at one's feet as long as one applies oneself and does well. You know what I said of my student, that student, I won't call the name of the individual, but he graduated with a 3.9 average in the major.
So it really does provide a great foundation for anything that you might want to do. Joyce, talk if you would about that introductory course, about that first awakening perhaps that might occur for people who don't know much about the origin of folks who came here from Africa.
And in fact, that course, with its 9 sections or so, now with 2 online, introduces the student. Usually, most faculty members start in Africa with the African origins, and it covers a very long period of time, and so you have to be very careful about how you teach the course. I have taught the course many times and found that the students are very excited to learn about Africa, Egypt, the old African, ancient African cities in West and East Africa, South Africa. And then we introduce them to African culture on the continent. And then we bring them across the ocean to the Americas. And we cover the period of introduction of Africans to the Caribbean and then to the what becomes the United States eventually. And we go through slavery, Civil War, Jim Crow, up to the present time, Civil Rights Movement.
So it's sort of an overview.
It's
of really that history.
And often students do better when they do research and write papers and do presentations. So in my class, they do a presentation, a group presentation, and they come up with a topic that I help them select, and then they do great presentations. I've even videotaped some of the presentations so that we can use them again in the classroom. And they're usually so excited, and they have a great time learning more about people of African origins and enjoying so themselves because, of course, the history of humankind begins on the African continent.
You see, Professor Kirk just mentioned the history of humankind begins on the African continent. Individuals often ask, what is the fundamental defining attribute of Africology? And I always say that Africology is the normative and empirical inquiry into the life histories and life prospects of Homo sapiens sapiens, universally, transmillennially, and transgenerationally. Or if you like, transgenerationally, transmillennially, and universally. You see, because Homo sapiens begins in Africa, who gives rise to us, the subspecies, Homo sapiens sapiens. You see, most individuals in your audience and just planet-wide are not conscious of the fact that we are merely a subspecies of Homo sapiens, and around here, by around here I mean this planet, for a mere 30 to 50,000 years. With our origins in Africa, and then thereafter spreading out across the planet. So by subject matter, Africology is the oldest of all disciplines. Institutionally, it's of more recent vintage, roughly 2 generations, really picking up in the early to mid 1960s. And individuals often conflate, you see, subject matter discipline and institutional discipline, believing that Africology is, or Afro-American studies. But Afro-American studies is simply a subset of Africology. Africology is the fundamental discipline in the context that I just sketched for you.
Winston, why did it take so long for the study of Africology to become developed as it is at university campuses, UWM? You know, I think there were 500 some programs around the country now, but it came awfully late on the scene, given the importance, isn't it?
But I like to use sociology as my comparative frame of reference. Sociology, the study of societies fundamentally, again by subject matter and old discipline. Institutionally, a rather recent vintage, late 19th century, 20th century. You think of sociology, one thinks of individuals, largely continental, Comte, Durkheim, Saint-Simon, right, continental Europe. One of my favorite stories is that in 1981, I was on the search committee looking for a vice chancellor for academic affairs. That committee eventually brought in Norma Rees here to become vice chancellor. Anyway, to cut a long story short, as you know, committees take breaks. We were meeting in the Golda Meir Library. So I just wandered in the stacks, walking around, and pulled a book from the stacks. Turned out it was a volume by R. McKeever, one of the, talk about fathers of 20th century sociology. And what's interesting about McKeever, as a young man, he was a brilliant student, I think at Oxford, can't remember, either Oxford or Cambridge. Well, at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, if one is a brilliant student at Cambridge or Oxford, what does one study? One study the classics, because that's what brilliant students do. Well, he had got infected with this thing called sociology. Comte, Durkheim, Saint-Simon, come on, serious people don't do that kind of thing. His instructors, his professors thought he had lost his mind. Well, to cut a long story short, he turns out to be one of the fathers, as I said, of sociology. Sociology, which is basically, in its institutional form, a 20th century discipline. Just as Africology will flower likewise in the 21st century, you see.
Was the awakening of racial awareness or the social conscience that we saw in the 60s, late 50s, 60s here in the States, was that also one of the turning points or trigger points to see Africology programs develop?
Yeah, I think a large number of the programs that developed late 60s, 68, 69, 70s, with student protest. San Francisco State, UWM, many other programs developed in University of Illinois, Chicago is my alumni. That program also developed early 70s, Department of Black Studies, and largely out of protest. And so the discipline began with some scholars who had been teaching, perhaps not at the university. They came into the university, other scholars like Winston. And it's a great question because it helps us understand why we have an interdisciplinary scholarship in terms of the background. I have a PhD in history, UW-Madison. Others have PhDs in philosophy, political science, economics, English. And we have one of our new professors has a PhD in Afro-American Studies from Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. The only person in the department with a PhD in Afro-American Studies, because there's only 7 programs at this time that are administering PhD programs, and we hope to be the 8th program, beginning our PhD program in September 2009, once we get past all the committees in the Board of Regents.